All right, well, when I'm looking to set up to take pictures of a model, a senior, a guy or girl, it really doesn't matter. Some of the things you look for is the color of their clothes, the color of their eyes, the color of their hair, and again, whether you're in a studio or outside. But now I want to discuss going outside to take the picture. I like to blur the background. So typically, 5 or 6 inches in front of their face and only 2 or 3 inches behind them are going to be in focus. And then if it's a tree or it's a building or something behind them, it's going to be out of focus. But I want the background to match their eyes or their clothing. So I want it to be where it makes their eyes pop. And then having the background blurred is going to make the individual stand out and pop. So you do have to look at what you want the background to be, and then you never want to stand them right next to a building. You want them to stand a little bit out from the building, or well, let's just let it go at that. You want to blur the background in almost all cases. Good. All right, I definitely use Canon products. I've been using them for 35 years. Right now, I'm using the Canon 5D Mark II. I have two of these, one for my regular shooting and one for backup, and then I have a couple other lesser cameras that I use for backups also. When I'm setting up to take portraits of people, I generally use 3 lights. And they're strobe lights, so they go off when my camera sets them off. I always have a light, main light, which is behind me, facing pretty much straight at the subject, and then I have a light over to one side or another to kind of help light the side of one of their faces a little bit brighter than this side. This one still has light, but this one has a little more light. And then I have a background light which will light their hair and the background behind them to give them some depth of field. So you almost always need 3 lights to do a good portrait. Editing our photos, of course, for a photography company, Photoshop and Lightroom are by far the most efficient ways to edit your pictures. But there are other programs out there. Portrait Professional is a great program where you're able to just soften the picture. It takes out most of the blemishes in your face. But if you want to get really into it, you go into Photoshop and you can paint hair out of somebody's mouth, or you can take braces off their face, which we don't do much of that. But yes, Photoshop and Lightroom are the biggies. We do use those. Portrait Professional is one where we do use quite a bit also. The future of photography is not nearly as optimistic, I guess you might say, as it was years ago. 10 years ago, photography was a great field to be in. The most fun thing for me that you can do, and it still is the most fun thing for me. I'm very glad I'm a photographer. But the photography industry is looking a lot more bleak now. People with studios, there's very, very few. In fact, half of the photography studios in the country have gone out of business in the last 5 or 6 years. Now you have what I call little whippersnappers that have their own little cameras, not quite as expensive as this in some cases, but in other cases, you can do pretty much the same thing. This is about right at $3,000 for the lens and the camera, but you can go out and buy you a $800 or $900 lens and camera and do very similar. And there are lots of people out there doing that outside, not in a studio. So there's so much competition now that they're taking business away from us photographers with studios, but I still love it. It's my passion. I'll always do it, and I hope that you kids that want to get into photography will do it at least part-time to see if you can make a living out of it. Competition in the photography industry is I guess fairly stout, but at the same time you stand out with your quality of your product, you stand out with the service that you give, and you stand out with the pricing that you give. So if you're good to your people, you give them a fair product at a fair price, you're going to make it in this business. I mean, that's how we've built our business or kept the business that we have, is by doing those things. So you don't worry about your competition. We only have one competitor in Rockdale and Newton County that has a studio, and he's right next door to us. I can throw a baseball and hit his building from here. And Danny and I are very good friends, and we get along great, but we don't worry about competition. All right, if I was going to give someone some advice on having their own photography business or getting into the photography business, it honestly would be like most any advice I would give to a younger person, is to work hard. If you think that you're going to get into photography business and work 8 to 4, 8 to 5 each day, you're crazy. You're not going to last very long. You have got to be out there more than your competition is. You've got to be seeing people. You got to be talking to people. You got to be shooting pictures, showing pictures. So you have to work hard, and then you've got to be honest and ethical and very responsive as far as getting your product delivered to them. So you got to be above average in all of your delivery and the product that you produce, and then just being out there and calling people, talking to people. You just have to work harder.